All right. Good afternoon, beautiful people. This is your host, Matthew, Day and Night Podcast, episode number 87. We have another good one for y'all today. Hopefully, everybody enjoys it. Hopefully, everyone is having a beautiful Sunday. As always, like, subscribe, comment if you can, share if you can. And like I said, I hope that everybody enjoy this one. I'm dabbing into something I normally don't get into, which is like relationship type of topics. So we're gonna see how this go. But we got our co-host Mark in San Antonio. What you got for us, Mark?
Just going to say good afternoon. Well, good evening now. It's 5 o'clock. Appreciate you guys for tuning in. Sunday fun day. Hope everybody enjoy themselves. It's summertime, so the weather's beautiful. So get out there, enjoy yourself. Work hard, play hard. But I'm looking forward to this one. This was an interesting topic to talk about. So like, subscribe, leave a comment, and share all that good stuff. But as always, I'm gonna let you kick it off, and I'm gonna go ahead and piggyback off of your comments. So I'm ready. Let's go.
All right. So as always, I'll be sitting back. I'll be thinking, and so this one is a little bit more personal. So that's why I kind of touching on this topic today. Hola, Christina. She said, "Hola."
Hey, what's up?
Glad to have you join us again. Please chime in. Definitely want to hear a female's perspective on this topic. So today's topic is, can a man be sexually frustrated in a relationship? So when I originally thought of this topic, my whole mindset was like directed in one direction. And it was more or less the woman not doing what she's supposed to be doing or whatever the case is. So as I did a little bit of research on it, and it took me out of that blind spot as far as everything else that comes with it. So as always, I try to bring some context to it. So it's like 6 topics that we can talk about. And the first one dealing with sexual frustration for a man in a relationship is the frequency of sexual activity, sexual compatibility, emotional stress and fatigue, health issues. So I'm more or less more so focused. I want to touch all of them. Well, we're going to touch all of them, but I'm more or less going to focus on the first 3. And this is a touchy subject just because, and I'm pretty sure, Mark, you might agree with this. Most men, in my estimation, is not going to admit that they're sexually frustrated. I think sometimes the ego and the machoism of a man is not going to allow themselves to say that I'm sexually frustrated. Rather, they're saying it to their woman, or if they're saying it amongst their peers, their buddies, whatever the case is. So I'm just going to be transparent. This is not directed at any individual person. This is not to put individual person on blast. Like I said, it's my experience. And I think it's something that definitely affects relationships. It definitely affects men. And like I was saying, I believe some men is not going to be honest about it. So men, if you're looking, please chime in. I definitely want to hear your feedback on this. So just going back to a relationship I was in. And every time I get in a relationship, I always put it out on the table. I tell the female, this is how I am. This is what I expect. And, this is what I want. I'm a very highly sexual person. Like my sexual appetite is really, really high. I remember Tam used to say, you're insatiable. And I always let that be known going into a relationship. So this particular relationship, I let it be known. And the person she was like, okay, cool. I'm the same way. Now, I'm going to be explicit with some of this. And we're talking. And she was like, yeah, I love to suck dick. I was like, oh, okay. I wasn't expecting that. So I was like, cool, because that's one of my favorites. I'd rather have that than anything else. Now, mind you, she volunteered that information. I didn't solicit that information. She volunteered it. So I'm thinking, okay, if she's that upfront with it, then she's definitely about it. So we got in a relationship, and 100%, she was down with that, like a porn star. And I was like, okay, this is going to work.
What she doing?
So, later into the relationship, maybe a year or so later, that started to decline. I said, okay. I didn't say too much about it. I let it slide a little bit. Then it started declining again. It went from frequently every other day, waking up to it. I'm like, boy, that's what I'm talking about right here. This is what every man wants. And it just started to decline. So I'm like, okay, something is definitely up. So, like the person I am, I brought it to her attention. I said, look, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's something that I'm doing that's offending you or whatever the case is. And like every woman, the famous excuse, and I'm not saying it's not possible, but I'm pretty sure, Mark, you heard this too. Well, I'm sorry, I'm just tired. I just work a lot. I got a lot going on. That's okay. She does work. I can respect that. I'm not going to, dismiss her feelings or anything like that.
Yeah.
But then it kept going. Then the hair growth. I like to eat. And the hair growth started getting out of control. Then the grandma panties came. So I was like, see, hold up, pause. Something is definitely going on. You stop doing it. You got a freaking safari down there, and you got the grandma panties. So I'm like, something is definitely wrong. But first swore up and down, nothing was wrong. So basically what I'm getting to, I was highly frustrated at that point. Now, I'm going to say that there's like 3-4 different types of men. You have a type of man that if that's going on, they're not going to say anything. They're going to handle their business outside. Then you got the second type of man, which is myself. They're going to bring it to your attention and allow you to correct it. Then you got the third type of man that just don't give a shit. So, like I said, I'm the second type. There's one thing that I've always said to the person I was in a relationship with. Whatever you do, don't make me starve. Don't let me leave the house hungry. And if you let me leave the house hungry, like every man going to do when they get hungry, they're going to eat. I love that line from Matthew McConaughey. I forget what movie it is. He said, when a lion is hungry, he eats.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what a man is going to do. So if you allow your spouse or your significant other, whatever label you want to put on it, if you allow him to leave hungry, it's the natural nature of a man is to hunt and seek and destroy, so to speak. So that's just something we can't take that away. When you find a man that's 100% monogamous and he's focused on you and you allow him to leave the house hungry, not saying it's okay for a man to cheat or he shouldn't cheat, but we're going to rely or resort back to our natural nature, which is we're going to hunt. And when I say don't let your partner leave hungry, that's not just with sex. That's in every aspect. That's with emotion. That's with support. That's with yeah, everything. It encompasses everything. Excuse me. So that's my whole focus with this is not allowing your spouse or significant other to be hungry and sexually frustrated. And I got more to touch on this, but I want Mark's perspective on this.
Well, I was saying earlier, I don't know if you heard me, but I said, did she go hop tour on it? I don't know if you heard me, but I don't know if you saw that chick that blew up, man. I'm telling you, you just do the silliest things and you blow up and become famous nowadays. But now she's getting hats and all that. That's crazy. But anyway, so I guess that falls under which one? Because I know you said it's different categories. What you spoke of, is that frequency, compatibility, emotions, more or less, probably? Right?
Probably a combination of all of them, but I would say more so frequency.
Frequency. Okay, so I could definitely relate to what you're saying now. I ain't going to say unfortunately. Fortunately, I never really had to experience exactly what you did. So I think pretty much what I'm going to speak on is kind of goes back to the other episode we had. I think that was last year when it was, is sex can be used as a weapon.
Yeah.
So the reason why I'm using that is this is a long time ago in a relationship where we got into it, or we had a disagreement. I ain't gonna say got into it. We just had a little spat or whatever. So she was doing pretty much like we said on other podcasts about she refused to let us be, have sex, and kept getting to the point where she basically was like rationing it out. When she deemed it ready, that she had let me get it. So that made me become, sexually frustrated because it's like, okay, so now you're gonna ration out when you want it because you're upset. So you feel like you're gonna use that against me, knowing that that's something that I enjoy doing, especially with that particular person. So that was her way of getting me sexually frustrated, is because it was a lack of, and it was whenever I'm ready, or came up with the excuses, tired, I'm busy, or long day at work. So that was the only literally experience for myself personally that I'm gonna speak on, is pretty much that was it. She used it against me because we had a disagreement. She felt like that would be the way to get back at me because she knew that that was something that I like to do with her. So that was definitely frustration because it was, a leverage she used. So I agree with you on a man must eat. The line, you starve him. And I was just talking to, a friend of mine today or the other day on that particular subject. If you hold back on somebody, at some point that person gonna wind up drifting somewhere else. It's an old saying to go, you better do to your mate because whatever you won't do, somebody else will. So if you
Yeah.
feel like that's a punishment or whatever you want to call it, if you feel like even if the sex isn't that good, so you feel like, now I'm going a little bit off subject, but meaning this could be another sexual frustration is if she feels like you ain't the best performer. So she kind of has sex with you sparingly because she just don't she don't orgasm, or she just don't
Mm-hmm.
feel it as good as the last person. So she don't want to hurt, or, your feelings. So she just gonna, unfortunately, it's a bad way to handle it, is not do it as much, or give you
Mm-hmm.
excuses. So I think that's another way to be sexually frustrated, is if the woman is not being 100 with you and telling you, look, bro, you're slacking, you're not big enough, or you're not moving good enough, whatever the case may be. If she does that and just kind of minimize how many times you do it, I think that's enough frustration. Because I personally would take it as, okay, if you don't like it, then I'm gonna see if somebody else do. Because if it is me and you're not telling me, that's gonna make me feel like either you're doing something or you don't like it. Then I need to figure out what's wrong. Maybe this other woman might like what I'm doing. So I think that's important on the communication between the two. Vice versa. If you feel like, and it's an uncomfortable subject because your ego and the other person's
Mm-hmm.
personality, how you want to handle that. So if you tell the person, look, you ain't that great, and I know it's a compatibility has a lot to do with it. I feel like that's
Yeah.
something you got to get used to each other. You got to feel each other
Mm-hmm.
out. But I believe conversation is important. What is your favorite position? What do you like to do? How do you do it to, and I feel like when you do that, you got to be really cautious. Don't be an asshole when you say it to make the other person feel like they suck. But I feel like that's important. You got to be able to communicate with each other on that level, because I think that eliminate problems going down
Mm-hmm.
the road, in my opinion. So
All right, that's good. I like that. So something I want to piggyback on what you said, and then I want to answer this question that Christina posed. So, and as far as when you said, if it's the way the person is doing it, if they don't like the way your performance is, or whatever the case is, and the other thing you touched on, this is my belief. I could be wrong, but it's just my belief. I believe when a woman does that, like you said, at one, it could be they just not feeling you like that, or they're with somebody else. I know women's going to say that's not what it is. I just believe either you're doing it with somebody else, or you're just not into that person anymore. It's no way you start off as a porn star and then you just turn into darn blasted Mary Poppins or whatever. It's just no way. The only way that happens is, like you said, you're not feeling that person in that aspect, you're not connected, or you're doing it with somebody else. And this to me is no in between. It just can't be. It doesn't fall off that drastic. Now I know sometimes us as men, we may do things and say things and not knowing that we're affecting the woman that we're with. And if they're the type that's not going to be vocal about it and let us know, we'll never know. And that's always the number one, for me, the number one red flag is when the sex decrease, then the relationship is damn near over. So that's going to lead me into Christina's question. She said, so is sex the most important thing in a relationship? I say, no, it isn't. But for me, sex is one of the most important, is because that is the coming together of two people expressing how they feel about each other. And that is one of the best ways to express it, is in that form. And because you're exchanging energies and stuff like that, you're connecting, you're becoming one. So you can tell somebody I love you, you can buy stuff for them, but the way sex is supposed to be, when you're with that person you truly love with, and this is your soulmate, those two energies combining will be out of this mind. I mean, out of this world. So you can't replace that, because again, it's two energies that's connected. So for me, I'm not speaking for anybody else. For me, that's how I perceive it. I'm not saying it's the most important, but it's definitely up there. Because again, that is for me how the only way we can express it, as far as the emotion, the truly feeling. If that makes sense, let me know if that makes sense to you. So that's going to go into this next category, which is the sexual compatibility. You know, differences in sexual preference, fantasies, kinks can cause frustration. I don't know about you, Mark, but like I said, when I first get into a relationship, that's one of the things that I talk about. This is what I like. This is what I don't like. And again, if two people are transparent in the beginning and these things are starting, but then it dissipates, that is my question. Why is it dissipating? If you're not being upfront with that person, like Mark was saying, hey, I'm sorry, but I'm just not feeling you that way. The way you move is not compatible with the way I move. Something needs to be said. It has to be said so that other person, so that man would know. And so he's not left in the dark. And it's like I was saying before, Mark said he haven't had that much experience with it. And like I said, most men is not going to address it. They're not going to say anything. Not saying Mark did this, but they're going to go out and do their thing. So they're not going to worry about it. They come home and they love and kiss you and hug you and stuff and act like everything is cool, but they got a side chick on the side. So in a sense, they're not frustrated. They're frustrated because they're going outside, but they're not frustrated to the point to where it's bothering them. They're stressed out and it's like, oh my God, I can't move, I can't function. I'm just being honest. Most men move like that. Now, this is the other side I want to say to it. For those men that, like I said, once they find a woman that they feel as though she's the one, and they're doing everything in their capability to be monogamous with that lady, that's the worst thing you can do, is allow him to be frustrated. Because again, our natural nature is to seek and hunt. So if he's cutting it all out and he's focused on you and you're not feeding him the way he should be fed, that's going to allow him to be frustrated. And then like, damn, I'm doing my best. I don't want to resort back to how I was before, but damn it, she's just not doing what she was doing before. So that's more or less what I'm asking or addressing, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
All right. So Mark, I'm just going to address this, what Christina said, and I want to hear your perspective on that. She said, Matt, I agree with putting all the cards on the table so that way they can't come back and say, I didn't know that or this about you, but I really believe that you really, really don't know a person. Yeah, that's true. I'm going to let you answer that one or respond to it.
Well, I'm going to respond to the first one about does sex really matter? I'm going to say that's a two-way street, meaning it does and it don't. I think it matters because, like you said, we connected two energies. That should be a safe haven or your last place where you have that energy together, where you intertwine and you express your feelings towards each other. So I feel like it is important, but it's also important because let's be honest here, let's say you have somebody that you love and everything else about them aspects is wonderful. And I even said this about a few months ago. My friend and I was talking about exactly this. And I posed the question, how would you handle that? The person's good on every other level, emotionally, financially, spiritually, all that, but he just sucks or she sucks a bit. How would you handle that? And they said it would be a tough decision. If the love is strong enough, they would still be there for the person because the love conquers all of the other, that one minus problem, which is the sex. But then she also said what you just said. At some point, she gonna seek somebody else because it's the one thing that's not fulfilling her, which is the pleasure of being sexual. And that's important because you want to be able to please your partner. And the person is lacking. I agree. You want to exchange energies, but again, I'm being realistic. At some point, if you can't, I don't want to say teach them, but if you kind of help them and say, look, this is what I like for you to do, babe. I want you to do it this way. This is what gets me. And they still struggling, at some point you're going to venture out because it's like you untried every aspect to get this person to actually be able to fulfill your needs, and that don't happen, then you're going to wind up seeking someone else. That's just on the compatibility level, meaning again, if the person just isn't getting it or doing it for you, and I believe conversation is perfect, but then I also feel like we could talk about it all we want in the beginning, like you were saying, well, I like this, I love sex, and then shit comes up and you stressed out. For men anyway, I don't know about you, but when I'm mentally not into it, I ain't probably going to perform the best because I'm already mentally stressed out. So it could be, well, damn, you say in the beginning, dude, you like giving it to me 3-4 times a day. And now it's once a day, twice a week. And it's just because we got a lot going on outside. So I feel like you have to be able to work with that person depending on the situation. Now, the flip side of that, like I said, if she's just using it as an excuse, I think you'll be able to tell. But if she's really stressed out at work, whatever's going on, and it's just not, and you like, look, babe, I need it, and you ain't giving it to me enough, then that's when you're going to have to figure out something. I ain't going to say make it a point because that never works. I think that's crazy. But, sometimes you got to do that for whatever helps to make that work. So I believe on that level, yeah, it's important because we all know that you want to be pleased. We can have every other thing in the relationship, but if you lack it in that area at some point, you're going to try to figure something out to keep yourself pleased. I just believe that. Now, I could be wrong, but my perspective, I feel like at some point, yeah, you're going to drift if that person isn't trying to do something. You can bring toys into the mix, do videos, try to do everything first, cover all bases and say, hey, look, let's try to do something different to bring spice to it. If that still ain't working, yeah, there's going to be an issue. I don't care how happy you are on every other aspect. At some point, it's going to suffer.
Yeah. All right. So I had a conversation the other day, and this is the other piece. This is from a female, and it kind of blew me away. And she was like, well, it doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to cheat, just leave. I get that. But I think there's a difference. If you're dating somebody and you're not on the lines of, okay, we're going to push this forward to a lifelong relationship. If you're just, okay, we're just going to go with the flow, whatever the case is, we're just having fun. And if that person's, cutting you off and got you frustrated, yeah, I say just leave. You know what it is. I'll find somebody else. But like I was saying, I think this is what some women don't grasp is when a man locks in on one, he's basically saying, I'm not going to hunt no more. You're the one. And you tell him, well, just leave then. If you feel as though you have to cheat, just leave. That tells me you was never connected and you was never emotionally connected. Because just to tell somebody, to me, it takes responsibility off of you. Because if you know that you're the type of person that's inconsistent, that you can't maintain, frequent sex and doing all the things that you did in the beginning, then you shouldn't even be in a relationship. If you know that about yourself, have the integrity to say, you know what, I'm just going to be honest with you. I get freaky in the beginning, but if I tail off, and it don't pick back up, then that's just me. I start off high and I kind of flatline out. If you know that's who you are, don't get in a relationship and then turn it around and tell the man, well, instead of cheating, just leave. Don't get in a relationship. Just be out there dating, not say sleeping around, but just do you. Don't even pull somebody in there. And I think the difference, what I'm saying is a man that's committing to you. And I'm not talking about a man y'all just dating, but if a man is committing to you and he's saying, I am not going to do what I used to do no more, I'm focused on you, to tell him, well, I'm not going to change. I'm not going to do, better or go back how I was before. Instead of cheating, just leave. I think that's the lowest thing that a person can do if you're saying you're in a committed relationship and you're supposed to love this person. So that's just my spill on that conversation we had. I think it's both parties. They have to be responsible. I'm like, okay, it's not going to work. Let's split. But don't say, instead of cheating, just leave. Because again, for a man to do that, to step out of his natural nature, that says a lot about you. That he think that highly of you, that he's like, you know what, I'm locking in on you. Especially if you're talking about a younger dude. An older guy should be a little bit easier because you're older and you should be a little bit more mature. But if you a young guy, for him to do that at 20 something years old, and he's not going to venture out no more, and you tell him, well, just leave, that's crazy to me. All right, so now I want to touch the next one. Start on the next one, unless you got a comment about that.
Oh, well, I was just gonna make a comment kind of in general, but about the frustration of having sex. Now, this is one thing I was thinking as you was talking about when you talk to someone in the beginning. I'm stuck on that right now because I think that's the core of it. Is because, and I experienced this one time with a lady where we conversated like, what do you like, what you don't like, and this is a killer for me because I think we need to break that down on a definition of freaky. Now, the reason why I say that is because when we was talking, she's like, "Oh, I'm a freak. I do this, I do that." So I'm thinking, okay, I'm gonna get the whole full package. So when it happens, it's like, "Oh, I don't do that. Oh, I don't do that." I'm like, "Well, wait a minute. You told me that you was a freak. So what is your definition of a freak? Just different positions?" Because a freak means, it is what it is. This is my coming out my lens, my view is there's no limitation on what you're gonna do with that person. Of course, there's somebody you serious about. I mean, you're monogamous with them, you exclusive. There's no other seeing people you into that person. I think there should be no cap on what you allow. So my point is, to me, that's a frustration is when you date or you be with somebody, not date, when you with someone, and like you were saying earlier, Matt, about they give you a preview, but when it comes down through the process, like this, you ain't doing what you said. You false advertised because you said you was gonna do this and you ain't doing none of that. So you gave me false information. So now I'm frustrated for the simple fact you're not holding up your end of the bargain. So I think that's something that's when I said earlier about talking is kind of a double-edged sword because you can tell a person, and I believe in the beginning, and this is just my own spin on this. I feel like I call it an interview. When you go, you always want to say the right things because you want that job. You want to do and say things in the beginning because you want to keep that job. But is that really you? Or you just, again, giving false hope because you feel like, oh, I like this person, so I'm going to tell them this. And you would say, well, who would do that? I'm like, we mature adults. Why would you lie knowing you're not going to do this? Again, I just feel like we all kind of overhype ourselves and say things that typically, might say we do, but do we really do it? So I feel like that's a big frustration. Just sharing with y'all on how I feel about one of the frustrations when it comes to that. That's a big one for me, though. Don't do that.
Okay, now I'm going to share something from a friend of mine. And we had a conversation. And she asked me a question. She's like, Matt, now, how would you feel if you was dating a female and y'all introduced a toy in a relationship, but she used the toy more than she was with you? Would you get mad if she enjoyed it more than she was with you? So that blew my mind. I was like, hell yeah, because now you attached to the toy, And again, sex is supposed to be about the expression of emotions and how you feel about somebody. Now you just totally took that out of the picture and it's all about lust or whatever and not about expressing your emotions with that person. So again, that leads a man to be frustrated. So would he be wrong if he stepped out? Based off the conversation I had with the female, she was like, he shouldn't cheat. He should just leave. So to me, that's wrong because she's trying to forcing him in a corner because it's like, okay, do I just sit back and watch her do this? And she's enjoying the toy more than she's enjoying me, but I just supposed to just sit back and not be fulfilled because I love you, that I supposed to just accept it. So I just believe that because we're men, men are always put on the back burner as far as when it comes to sexual frustration. It's like it doesn't exist for us. And if we do mention it, then we're deemed weak because that's not something that man's supposed to be frustrated about because they know our natural nature is to seek. So I just think it's a double standard, excuse me, when it comes to that. And so it's kind of quiet over there. So I want to hear, Christina, your perspective on it as far as one, why would a female do that? As far as you start off like that and then just start to slowly decline. So please chime in. Me and Mark are talking, but I want to hear a woman's perspective on this. Yeah. All right. So while I'm waiting, we're going to move on to the next one, which is an emotional connection. And this is what I was talking about as far as when you're with the person, what sex is supposed to be about other than procreating is the expression of emotion. Now, again, I had a conversation and, she was like, well, what if the female is tired? Sometimes I'm tired and I don't feel like, doing it. I have work. I got this, I got that. Again, I get that. I'm not disputing that. But my thing is when you totally connected to a person and you're emotionally attached, all that stuff goes out the window. Because again, you're expressing your emotion. When you see that person, oh my God, I just love her so much. Man, you just get that boost of energy. And unless you're doing sex wrong, it's always an adrenaline rush. So the tiredness stuff shouldn't really be affecting you to that degree. So I'm just curious as far as the females that's out there that's listening, what your perspective is on that. And what is yours on that, Mark, with the emotional part?
Well, I kind of agree with that. I mean, that's the biggest one I think out of all of them. Because when I talk to women, I know you know this, but Christine, you chime in and kind of, co-sign it, is emotionally, if you women is attached to you emotionally and mentally, that's going to open the floodgates and she going, whenever you want it, how you want it, what time, it doesn't matter. So I think the emotion is the biggest aspect because if you touch on that and you're emotionally connected, yeah, there should be no reason to not please your dude. It should be continuous. Now, we said this early in the show. To me, if she stopped doing that, it's two things. You already said it. Either she emotionally losing attachment or she messing around with somebody else. Because if you there on that level, you feel each other, you got that vibe, there ain't no reason for y'all not to be doing it all the time, anytime, wherever, because you have that connection. That emotion is there to where that body chemistry is like a muscle memory. Y'all get at each other just because emotionally y'all feeling each other, tired and not tired. So I feel like, yeah, there shouldn't be no reason. Your emotions, if it's tied and connected, like energy, that vibe, like two magnets, there's no excuses. That's just my firm belief on that. So that's where I'm at. Now I'm gonna share something with you. I told her to come on and give us her comment. We was talking earlier because I told her what the show was gonna be about. Now I'm gonna try not to mess up what she said, but she told me if I was to come to you and ask you or make a comment, hey Mark, I want to reconnect with God. I've been doing this the wrong way. We doing this where we ain't married. I feel like we need to step back and not do it as much, or not even until we get married. How do you feel about that? So I told her, I'd be honest, like if we really there with each other and I love you and you love me and we are connected on all levels, I would have to respect that because you, for one, you're being honest, you communicating that to me. It would be a bother because I'm like, we already done it. So how you just going to pause? It's like, oh, let's go back and start over. But if you're really serious about it, then I would say, you know what, that would be something I would entertain. But it better be for the right reasons, not because you're trying to, and I don't think she would, or she wouldn't come to me about that. But I think that would be the only reason why I will keep from getting sexually frustrated is if she communicated it. And like I said, she's sincere, she's really trying to do right. I wouldn't fault her for that. So that was what she opposed me. She was supposed to come on and present that to the both of us. But I'm gonna let you comment on
that. Okay, I was kind of reading the comments from Christina. So just tell me the gist of it again.
Oh my God, you weren't listening?
Yeah, I was listening but reading at the same time.
So did you hear any of it? So I gotta do it all over again, basically.
Just give me the meat and potatoes of it.
Okay, the meat and potatoes is she was saying if she came to me or your significant other came to you, meaning the guy, and told you, look, I want to restart and just, I found God. I feel like we doing it the wrong way. We need to get married before we have sex because I don't want to do anything the wrong way religiously. And she asked me, well, how would I respond to that? And I've just pretty much told her, if you were sincere, if that's something that you really want to do, I wouldn't get sexually frustrated because A, you're communicating it and you're not just off and just stopping and just one day decide to tell me this is the reason why. So I've told her if she was to ask me that, I would respect it if that's truly, sincerely what you're trying to do, even though we already bypassed all that. But if you really trying to reconnect with God and all that, or whatever reasons, I wouldn't get frustrated sexually because you're communicating it.
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. Like he said, I get it. But like I said, I'm a sexual being. I just love it. I honestly don't think I would be able to deal with that. I know that sounds crazy and it sounds disingenuous, but I'm just being honest.
Right.
I know some people had their come to God moments, and if you're into it because sex is such a heavy piece of the relationship, I think it would be unfair to kind of spring that on that person. So to me, it would be best to just separate because now you're forcing that person to live your path because that's something you decided to do. So I think that would be, to me, the fair thing to do because it's like, again, you're forcing them, okay, this is what I want to do, whether you like it or not, I'm going to do it. So I think the best way is to split, not to have that person just sit back and just wait till you decide to change your mind or feel as though you're comfortable to do it again. That's just my honest opinion. But so I want to answer Christina's question. She said, so what if your partner had a really bad accident and couldn't perform? What would you do then? That's a hell of a question, Christina. It's kind of on the lines of what Mark was talking about. I guess I might be reading too much into it as far as like how bad was the accident, did they lose a leg, or they have no limbs, like how bad are they injured that they can't, have sex or whatever. If you truly love the person, that shouldn't be an issue. But again, that man has to fight against nature. And if he's not in that place spiritually yet, then that's a challenge. And I'm just being real. If he's not there yet spiritually, then that's going to be a challenge for him. Now, is there other things that y'all can do? If your mouth not injured or whatever, then you can perform head or whatever the case is. And if you're not damaged down there, and it just depends on how significant the injury is. There's other things and other methods you can do to still express love in that way, as far as sex wise. All right, so KJ has a comment. She says, I think having empathy for your partner's emotional and physical well-being is important, which is directly related to sex for most women. Okay, so I don't know if you just came on or not, but when I first started, I was saying this is more or less geared to, you've got 3-4 different type of men. this is more or less geared towards the man that has those things that you're talking about, those attributes, when he actually providing the sympathy and empathy for his partner. He's doing everything he's supposed to be doing as a partner, and then the partner, for whatever reason, like I said, stopped doing what they was doing in the beginning. And as me and Mark said, there has to be a reason. In our estimation, we're not saying it's right, but in our estimation, from my experience, the only way a woman does that if she's with somebody else or she just totally lost connection with the person. To me, there's no in between. Yeah, you get tired, you have your moments, but it's not going to be such a decline to where it's just never ever going back to how it was when it started. To me, it's only those one or two things. I don't see how anybody can dispute that. We all going to have our ups and downs, our peaks and our valleys, but it shouldn't be, like I said, such a steady decline to where it's like the person is so frustrated. It's like, man, I'm really, beyond my wits. So, Mark, I'm going to let you answer those two.
Well, actually,
I want to hear you.
Now, what was the first one that Christina said? Because I think you kind of answered it for me, but just refresh me on the question she asked.
Which one, Christina or AJ?
Yeah, Christina, and both of them. First, Christina.
She said, what about if your partner was in a really bad accident?
I mean, I think that's, I ain't going to say a no-brainer, but I think that's kind of like you said, it depends upon what physically she's not capable to do. Because like you said, there's a lot of ways you can please a woman without just penetration. If you're emotionally still attached, you can get her to climax just by kissing on her or touching her a certain way. So I think that'll be something you have to explore to figure it out. Again, that's a team thing. We're going to have to figure each other out how to get to that level to where you can still please them. But for the guy, speaking for a guy, yeah, it's going to be frustration because it's like, look, I'm trying to do everything far and beyond, but I still like to do certain things. So to me, the only thing that's going to separate the two is that empathy for your loved one, how much you love her. Is it worth going out and doing it with somebody else just for pleasure? So I feel like it's going to be a battle. But us guys, you said it. By nature, we naturally are, way we function, we going to wind up at some point either looking or thinking about it or drifting that way. So I think it's a challenge. It's going to really come down to the love you have for that person and how much you really want to make that work. But the human aspect for a guy, the frustration, yeah, it's going to be a serious issue. Yeah, again, it's going to be how you handle it. At some point, something's going to give, I believe. That's a big challenge. Now, I'm going to share something not similar to that, but kind of what I went through personally. But the answer KJ's, hers was more or less to have empathy for the person.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So yeah. I guess that's pretty much the same thing I just said, just to repeat it again, is you should have that for your loved one. I feel like whatever the situation, physically, whatever it is, if you truly love that person and you're emotionally attached, you're going to have to work, like I said, figure out ways to bring that into the room to keep that pleasure between the both of you without getting too frustrated. Because again, that's a challenge. Now, I'm going to share with y'all, this was way back in my 20s. She was of African descent. She was from Africa. I can't remember where she was at, but over there, they cut the clitoral because, that's their religion. So I remember when we was getting intimate, and I'm looking like, where the hell is it at? I'm trying to find it and look, because some women is really, really small. She said, I don't have one. I said, so how are you climaxing? And how are you even being pleased? So it was frustrating me because I felt like I wasn't doing my job. So that started messing with my ego because she told me, well, you got to really do it this way and that way. So it was kind of a coaching period. And it was like, look, this is a lot of work just to get you to your climax. So it was frustrating because you got to be really particular on how you do it. And she was trying to do this and direct me. I was like, look, we was still kind of get to know each other. So it was a little different because we went 3-4 years in a very committed relationship. We was on that process. So it was frustrating, and eventually we wound up going our separate ways. But it was frustrating in the beginning because it was messing with my ego because I was trying to figure out, was it me? what am I doing wrong? She says, not you. It takes a lot for me, but you got to do it this way and that way. And I was just like, that's a lot for a dude to have to do to get to your climax. So that kind of, like I said, it's not exactly what Christine was saying, but it's similar because that was something that was done for her years. And she like, I know how to make myself climax. I said, well, it's your body. You learned it over time. But for a dude, unless it's your husband, it should be really in reality. But, again, we didn't get to that point. It was a lot. It was a lot. You got to have patience. And it tested my patience. So that's one thing to where it's a challenge for a dude.
I want to go back and touch on what KJ was talking about, the empathy thing. I get that. Like Mark said, you should have empathy and sympathy for your partner. But I go back to the beginning when you first meet the person and this person tell you, like me, I'm a highly sexual person. And because I'm all about energy, that's how I see sex, is exchange of energy and intertwining of energy. So that's why I gravitate to that more than anything else, because I'm all about the energy part of it. So you're saying that the man should have sympathy and empathy. So what about the sympathy and empathy from the female to the male? Again, it seems like it's one-sided. It's more so focused on, well, I'm a woman, so I trump you because women are sensitive and we think this way and this is how we operate. But you also got to realize that men are instinctive and they're visual. So if you're not providing those things, our nature, you have to, like, women have to grasp the concept of that man is fighting against nature. Just as if woman is fighting against nature too. But it's a little bit different when it's a physical aspect than emotional and mental, because you can kind of steer and direct the emotional and mental aspect of it, but the actual physical aspect of it. And if the man is, we're going to talk about this in a minute. If the man's not suffering from physical, situations health wise, and he's fully functional, you seriously have to take in consideration a fully functional man is going to have to tame that natural nature of wanting to seek, I don't say seek and destroy, but to seek and conquer. So if that is not being provided at home, that frustration, you can't just say, well, he needs to have sympathy and empathy. Again, if that man is not there, so you have to ask yourself, what type of man do I have? Do I have that man that's already ascended and he's in a spiritual place to where he doesn't allow his lower nature to overcome his spiritual nature? Then yeah. But if you're not dealing with that, to me, it's not realistic to have that mindset of, well, they have to have sympathy and empathy. Again, in the beginning, if you know you're that type of person where you have lows where it's one up, you're up and you're down when it comes to sex, then you shouldn't be in no relationship. If you're with a man that's 100%, that's what his not main focus, but he's highly sexual, then you shouldn't be in a relationship with him. You need to be with that man that's just as low key as you are, to have ups and downs. That's who you should be with. You shouldn't be with somebody that's highly sexual. And the same thing, I know what somebody's going to say, well, then he shouldn't be with somebody that's up and down. But again, I don't know if you was there in the beginning, the experience I spoke of, this female was like, oh no, I'm all about it. And she was a porn star in the beginning. So, and this is what Christina said. And I want to address what Christina said. She said they start out that way because they want to impress the man, but once they get him, he probably isn't everything that he thought or what they thought. So you're basically saying what I just said. And what Mark said, it's all about trying to reel a man, fish, bait, and hook, whatever they call it. And once you got him, then you think you got him, but then you're not thinking about, okay, this is a man. If I throw a blast to cut him off, at some point, he's going to, venture off. I think that's a jacked up way of looking at it. You have to check it first, date for a year or whatever the case is, and then find out if this is not the one. At least don't be telling somebody, oh yeah, I'm a porn star and hot tour and all that stuff. Don't do it.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, what's your response?
Well, I
Okay, I'm
always
gonna
say,
read this and I'm gonna get your response. She says, if you are emotionally connected with your man, Marcus, you're right. You would do anything and everything to please him. All right.
well, yeah, I did say that, but I did say it's a challenge now. I ain't saying it's gonna be easy. It's gonna take a lot of work, but the love shall conquer all, as they say, right? But no, what I was gonna say on that when you was just saying is the old saying goes, the way you got them is the way you should keep them. So I'm a
Yeah.
firm believer. If you got them that way to keep them, you gotta continue to do that. It's a consistency. Now
Yeah.
if you fall off a month or whatever, you like, I need to, regenerate whatever excuse you come up with. But you got to get back on that train and continue
Mm-hmm.
that process of what you was doing. Because I believe both men and women. I'm just gonna put it out there, even though this is about men frustration. I feel like you have to keep it spicy to keep it going. Because if you got him that way, why would you think that he's going to lose interest? He's going to keep wanting that. I know I would.
Exactly.
Do so. If you got me that way, you better continue or
Mm-hmm.
see to the next level. Go to the next level and let me see what you got, because you already did that. So to me, you got to keep going. And I feel the
Mm-hmm.
same way. God do that with his woman. So on that aspect, I feel like you got to do that to keep them. But you hit the nail on the head. Like, it comes full circle. Whatever you do in the beginning, I believe is the whole key, is the core of this. It's the
Mm-hmm.
conversation. And again, I throw caution with that conversation because, again, to me, it's an interview. You're trying to get that job. So you're going to say some things, and you're right. You shouldn't tell somebody something that you're truly not, because at some point it's going to show its rear head. It's going to show that it's not the truth. So to me,
Yeah.
if you aren't like that, I think both sides have to be honest with themselves. If you know that I'm highly sexual and your ass not, okay, we ain't gonna last too long. I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna be honest right now. I mean, you cool and I love your conversation and all that, but if you say what you say, we ain't gonna last long. Now, if you both understand that and you still go forward, then I think both of y'all gotta understand, hey, we knew going in and we chose to take that road, that path. I think that's when it's an even, hey, you said it, I said it, we both took it and went there. So we both in a room. But if one says it, the other one doesn't, then then you kind of wrong, because you're getting into that. Like for
Mm-hmm.
me, if I tell my woman, look, babe, I love it, I want it all the time, 4 times a day, she say, I'm the same way. And then she only do it once a week. You lied to me. Now it's time to go. Because I can't deal with this, because you already knew what I wanted. And then, well, you knew what I wanted too, but you didn't say that. So I feel like the core is in the beginning and what we both say to each other. And sometimes, let's be honest, we tend to gloss that over and be like, because you really like the person, you want to see, you might even gloss it over and overlook it. Going back to our red flags, way back when we did an episode on red flags. To me, that's a red flag. Kind of change the subject, but keeping it on the same line. So I feel like that's something you got to pay attention to in the beginning. If you don't, and I feel like, this topic, the woman should be 100. She got to be true to herself, not even to the guy.
Mm-hmm.
Be true to you. If you know this is not you,
Mm-hmm.
don't take that road. Don't even take that chance, knowing that dude's gonna, hey man, you ain't doing what you said, and get
Yeah.
mad at him because he's out there getting it somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of reap what you sow. You know what I mean?
I mean, and to touch, just to bring up a little bit of past, I tell every person I get in a relationship with, I tell them about the past, I tell them about the threesomes we had, you know, stuff we did as twins. So
Yeah.
I'm letting you know this is what you're getting in this is what you're getting with. So you need to be on point. And so I go back to that, not putting all the responsibility on the woman. But if a woman told me that, if it was reverse, if I knew I was kind of reserved and not really into everything like that, and the woman told me, oh, I'm like this, I do that, I'm gonna say, you know what, that's a little bit too much for me. We can probably have, some interactions and stuff, but as far as relationship, nah, there's no way I can maintain that. So to me, that's the responsible approach. for both. Okay, we both know this is not something I can handle. Let's just, have our fun and go our different ways. But to sit there and try to have a relationship and then you go cold turkey, and this is another thing too. Now, if you're living together, I get it because you see that person every day. And if it's frequently like that, 2, 3 times a day, every day, that's a lot. But if you see this person once or twice a week and you go a week, 2 weeks, to me, it's no excuses. You got plenty of time to say, okay, I know I'm going to see him this day. Let me plan. Let me make sure I'm straight so we can have, best good sex or whatever the case is. And then when I see him again, I recharge. But if you're together, it makes sense to me because again, you're constantly with the person. If you're trying to do it every day, that could be like, look, I'm tired, bro. Hold up. But if you got time in between when you're seeing the person, no, it's too much space in between to be sitting there letting it linger for 2, 3 weeks. That's too much for me.
You know what?
I'm just going to be honest. I think it was one person that had never allowed me to be sexually frustrated, and that was my ex-wife. We just weren't compatible in other ways, but she had it down. She knew, I'm going to make sure that you don't leave. And she said that, I'm going to make sure you don't leave hungry because I don't want you out there starving. That's taking care of the person that you're with. That's caring about the person you're with and knowing who the person it is, who you're with, and you making sure they're taken care of. So it goes both ways. Same thing, not just beating up on women, but same thing. Men got to make sure their wife or their partner is protected, provided for mentally, physically, spiritually, and all that. I'm not saying it's just all on a woman, but I'm saying as far as not allowing your man to be sexually frustrated, I think it's easier to please a man than it is for a man to please a woman because y'all have so much that y'all entail for us to do. For me, feed me, drain me dry, and give me support. Let me know I'm appreciated. That's all. If you do those 3 things, trust me, you'll be floating on air because I'm going to do anything and everything I possibly can to make sure you're taken care of. But if you lack in any of those 3 or all 3, then, it comes with the cause and effect. So, all right. Now I'm going to get to the other part is the stress and fatigue. Now, these are external factors such as stress from work, financial issues, challenges that can impact sexual desire and performance that leads to frustration. So everything when a man is sexually frustrated is not always on a woman. And sometimes stress, if you're not making enough money or bills and stuff like that can cause a man to have issues too. And along with the health issues, high blood pressure. What's the other things that they're called low testosterone.
Yeah.
So, and communication is another one. Not talking to your partner. So it's an accumulation of things that will allow a man to be sexually frustrated. For me, the main 3 that stands out for me are the first 3: the frequency, sexual compatibility, and the emotional connection.
Yeah, I agree. I would think the last one, well, yeah, I guess it would stress is be a number one reason for the performance on that. So I would say that would be the main reason, but the other first 3 would be the main ones for myself. But I was going to say this now. I think this is good at the beginning, both parties, I think. But if a woman, and I had met many women that told me this, where, oh, I don't give it all at once, so I'm gonna ration it out. I can't do it all at once because then you ain't gonna have nothing left to look forward to. So I think that it's kind of like saying tease the person, but it's not teasing, just give a little. I guess it's like spoon feeding. But to me, personally, I ain't speaking for no other dude. For me, I didn't like it at first, but I like it because like, oh snap, I didn't know you was like that. It's like keeping me interested. At the same time, it's not losing my interest because it's like, okay, so you trying to keep this one in the bag for the right time. So I believe personally, I like that when you give a little, but not too much to keep me coming back for more. Like, okay, you can do that. What else can you do? But at the same time, you got to be careful that you just leave them high and dry. Like, okay, that was it. I'm done. But if you into the person on all levels we spoke about, emotionally and all that, and spiritually, and then she could do that, I think that will keep me wanting more because now you got my interest. Now you got me. What's next? It's almost like, what you got there? What you gonna do this time? So I believe that would keep the interest for me personally. I can't say that for all dudes, but for me,
Yeah.
that would be a good reason. Is if you okay, I'm gonna give you a little, but not too much. To kind of keep that person engaged. Or
Yeah,
keep
but it
me,
can't be.
huh?
I said it can't for me. It can't be like 1 year you do it, then a year
No, I don't
later.
mean that
No,
long
that's too
now.
much
That's crazy.
anticipation.
No. I mean like throughout the months, you know what I'm saying? Not years. No, that's crazy. I would
Oh,
walk
okay.
away from that too. But I mean just enough each month got something new to the table. Like, damn, girl, you been watching movies or what? But
Yeah.
something like that would keep my interest. Like I said, that's me. I'm weird on that level, but yeah,
Yeah.
something like that would keep me engaged. So yeah,
Okay.
that's it.
Well, so I know you got to roll out, but beautiful people. I hope y'all enjoyed it. It seemed like it was only 5, 10 minutes, but
Yeah.
I think it was a good topic. We could have talked about it a little bit more. And again, this was not to bash anybody. This was not to point out one particular person. Again, it's just something I was thinking about. And I think it's something that should be addressed because there are a lot of frustrated men out there. And I'm just going to say this before we leave. I'll never forget when I was in the military and a partner of mine, he was like, "Hey, T, man, you ain't gonna believe this." He's like, "Man, my wife got pissed off because she opened the door in the bathroom. She caught me jerking off." He's like, "What the hell is she getting mad for? She ain't giving me nothing." He said, what do you expect me to do?" So the
Right.
point that I'm trying to get out of that is there are, he made a joke out of it, but he was dead serious, is that there are men that's sexually frustrated. Just most men is not going to speak on it because, again, it might make them seem soft or weak or whatever. Most men are just going to go do what they got to do. Trust me, I was in the military and 99.9% of the dudes stepped out on their spouses. So it is what it is. And if the spouse is not, they keep them frustrated, it's too much, it's too easy. You let them go out there hungry, you got people out there that's just sitting there waiting. They can smell it. Oh, this joker's starving, boy. Let me feed him. But anyway, this is not, again, to bash anybody, to bash women. It's just something to think about, ladies. Um, Hopefully, y'all got something out of it. Hope you learned something. And again, thank you for joining in. Thank you for commenting. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day. And as always, your thought becomes your belief, and your belief becomes your reality. All right?
Yes, sir. But just to end this, even though I should have said this earlier, but it's an old school saying: you want a freak in the sheets, a woman in the streets. That to me is you keep that concept, you keep me anyway. I can't speak for no other dude, but for the most part, most do I believe that if you freaky enough, keep your dude, you keep your guy. So just keep that, just food for thought. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. I appreciate y'all tuning in, Christina and KJ. Good feedback. I love it. STS guys, stay focused, trust the process, stay consistent.
All right. We
And I'm
out.
out.
Peace.